Hi, I'm Ed, and here you see I'm in outer space, and we're going to talk about To Life! Exclamation point. So To Life is the new brand for the medical TV series that Mark Colo inspired me to produce with him as
That was
co-host.
all you, Ed. That was your brilliance in doing
Yeah,
that.
but people wouldn't listen to me. They wanted to see how you are performing. And then you introduced me to Larry Linton, who's in Canada, originally from South Africa, an attorney, very successful. And also, he's using his affliction with Parkinson's to be a marathoner and play the drums using that beat, the rhythm, and something else. You just started a new business, right?
Yes, thanks. Nice to see everybody. Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, I launched Linton Consulting, Linton Coaching to help people navigate their lives with Parkinson's. I've been living with it for over 12 years now and have learned some tricks of the trade. I mean, you mentioned drumming to deal with some of the physicalities, but I've also had to go through the whole disability claim process. And that's a nightmare. So not only are you dealing with, the symptoms of Parkinson's, when you are diagnosed mid-career, it opens up a whole nother can of worms, so to speak. And I'm there to assist and help people thrive with Parkinson's, essentially.
That sounds like a book.
Could be my second book. Yeah.
All right. Jana Stoudemire, this is your third or fourth time on the program. I thank you. You're based in San Diego, as I am most of the time. And please tell us about your involvement with Axiom Space and tell us about the new space station that's now being constructed and your specific executive role in it. So a timeline, what it's about.
Absolutely. Well, first, thanks for the invitation and the introduction, and I'm pleased to be here with everyone. I love these programs because I think you do a great job of just making it real, and talking about what are the things that we all can do to try to make life better. So, in that segue, I work for Axiom Space. I'm the Global Director of In-Space Manufacturing. At the end of the decade, the International Space Station, which is an orbiting laboratory, although most people don't really think of it that way, will be decommissioned. And Axiom is building the successor to the International Space Station, attaching a first module in 2026, and then building out and becoming a free flyer. So when we think about people living and working in space, one of the things that we think about them doing is actually making products that are really going to change healthcare and technology. The paradigm of what we know today for technology and healthcare can really be substantially improved by leveraging that microgravity environment. So often when people think about space and they think, well, why aren't you doing things closer to home, right? That makes sense for the people on our planet. We actually are. I mean, we're looking at medical breakthroughs and producing products that can't be produced here on the ground that really will improve life on Earth and foster the possibilities beyond it.
Isn't that interesting? Okay, so have you booked passage on SpaceX?
So we conduct private astronaut missions, and in fact, we have 3 that we've already successfully completed and a 4th coming up this spring. Really, it's to train the crew to get ready for when our modules are on station. So unlike some of the other groups that you see that are going to space that just cross the Kármán line or maybe go up in orbit for a little bit, Axiom is the only one that has conducted missions to the International Space Station that last for about 2 weeks. And we're going to be expanding those to 30, 60, 90, 180-day missions. But it's a way for us to put all of our systems in place, mission control, splashdown, crew recovery, everything that we're going to need when we have our station up there. It's a way for us to train. It's also a way for us to invite countries that don't necessarily have space agencies to be a part of the commercial space economy. So we've got agreements with several international partners who don't have really access to space, but through commercial providers like Axiom, they now can be a part of that community.
Okay, before we go on, Larry and Ken, please feel free, and Jenna, you feel free to use the chat thing to communicate, exchange emails, addresses, because that's the ROI going forward, is the relationship building that I've been blessed to be able to do this. Jenna, so your Axiom people are in Houston Space Center, is that right?
Correct. And as a matter of fact, it's a little bit historic because we have a building at Spaceport in Houston that actually is the first building in Houston to be able to accommodate human-rated spacecraft. So building in Houston has not really taken place. Most of the building for the space station was in Florida, but now we have a high bay building, and we actually have the first module being delivered from our partners in Italy, Thales Alenia, in probably the end of this year, early next year. So, and we have one module on site already, a multi-purpose logistics module that was part of the agreement with NASA when we were awarded access, exclusive access to the docking ring. So our space station, there'll be a modular build out. There's others that are working on commercial space stations as well right now, because everyone sees that this can be a very robust commercial space economy, but everyone else will go up as a free flyer, and ours will start by docking to the ISS, which allows us to also transition equipment across and then eventually separate at the end of the decade when the ISS is decommissioned.
So we're going to get into the medical research in just a minute, and hopefully Dr. Harwood will show up here. But Jenna, the manufacturing of the space station, that's in Italy, you said, and because of that Italian connection, you're going to have good pasta as well as beautiful uniforms, right?
Well, so it's interesting that you say that, because we actually flew, Walter Villade was our pilot on AX-3, and he is from the Italian Air Force, and he flew with us. And we also have an agreement, a partnership with Prada to work on our next generation spacesuits. So Italy is a big part of the space station, and certainly interested. Walter did a lot of research for us on AX-3. We had a payload that flew Parkinson's and MS organoids, and he was actually part of that payload for us. So it was fantastic. Him and the Turkish astronaut, which is the very first time that a Turkish astronaut has flown to the ISS.
Wow. So is there a necessity to have, as a passenger, as a pilot, as a researcher, is it necessary to have a passport to enter the space station?
You know, that's something that I think will come in the future. You'll start to see.
Yeah.
I often say that what we're really,
Whose territory is it?
well, we're really expanding the definition of global to include 250 miles up. And when you think about it that way, you know, access to space has become so much more routine now. Even just in my career, 10 years in the space industry, the number of launches that we have, SpaceX will launch 120 rockets this year
Wow.
between Florida and California locations. A lot of those are satellite launches, and many of them are commercial resupply for the space station or commercial crew. But I can remember the days not too long ago when if we had 12 launches in a year, we'd be really excited. So you can see that it's changing, and that access point will become, as the airline industry grew, right? We had very few routes, very few carriers. You're starting to see multiple carriers, more routes, more access to that environment, which is fantastic when you think about accessing microgravity for the science that we can do there as well.
Okay, well, let's turn the discussion to the medical microgravity, picking up on that phrase. This means that in a zero gravity area, such as that, scientists can do things they can't do in La Jolla.
And it's interesting because the way that I usually try to describe it is when an astronaut goes to space and they see the planet from a different vantage point, it's called the overview effect, because it really changes their perspective on the world that we live in. The microgravity effect is very similar from a science standpoint. when you see what happens to biological systems, the way that fluids move, how physical forces change in microgravity, it changes your perspective on science. And I often say that, one of the most rewarding parts for me is not only the data that we get, but the fact that when I'm working with research teams, they change the way they ask questions of their research, which is how breakthroughs really happen, because they're now not bounded by gravity being a part of what they're doing. So they can think from a completely different perspective about how to ask questions and even what they can learn in that environment.
Marcolo, say something here, please.
Well, that's amazing. That's brilliant. And I love anything to do with science. I always enjoyed science in high school and college. Had so much fun. So I hear something like the microgravity view. I mean, that sounds exciting to me.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I spent most of my career before I transitioned to the space industry in biotech, pharma, and medical device. And I heard the word innovation one too many times. And I sort of thought, when I heard about science in microgravity and research in microgravity, I didn't even really understand the full impact of it. And what I've been able to see with my own eyes in terms of what happens, how gene expression changes, cell signaling, cell shape, cell aggregation, the way that cells and matrix interact in tissues. I mean, it's an amazing phenomena that when we leverage it to produce products that we can't produce here on Earth, or to understand diseases in a way that we don't have the opportunity to see them when we're growing in a two-dimensional petri dish here on the ground, it's really advances the field and our thinking about new approaches to therapeutics.
It's awesome.
I want to volunteer Mark to go on the first flight. I mean, he looks like an astronaut.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I was going to put my name in the hat for Location Scout to go out to Italy and find some other locations that you guys might want to tap into. And I would vote that I take Larry with me as my assistant.
And I'm the immigration lawyer. I may not have a job in space, but I'm bringing an extra set of clothing because of an extended period, perhaps.
That's right.
Like a trap. So let me ask you a question, Jana. Has anyone with Parkinson's or Alzheimer's gone on a space mission? And how has that impacted them?
Yes. So, as a matter of fact, there is this story that I thought for a long time was urban legend about an astronaut who flew and had Parkinson's, was diagnosed before he flew. And I always thought, no, that can't be real. Like, they never would have let that happen. And this rumor was that he went without telling anyone. And then we had a medical director at Axiom who actually was the one that signed him off. And he said, oh, no, we knew. And, we let him fly, which was kind of interesting. And the one challenge that he did have is he did a spacewalk. And when he went to put his glove on, he didn't quite get all of his fingers into the glove. And after several hours of a spacewalk, that was a bit problematic. So, but that was the only issue that he had. And honestly, there's been sort of zero-G flights for disabled ambassadors of space. And access to space, it's amazing when you see someone who's in a wheelchair go to space and say, I can move freely. Like I don't need, I'm free from the bounds of my wheelchair. And even people that are visually impaired, right, or hearing impaired, a lot of that work is to get ready for having astronauts or private citizens with disabilities up there, because the most important thing is egress. But in a microgravity environment, it's pretty easy to egress, even if you don't have mobility. So as long as you can have a flashing light, if you can't hear, or if you, and I had a really interesting conversation with the flight doc for one of the zero-G disabled ambassador flights, because I said, I fly, I'm a pilot. And so when I'm looking at the horizon, spatial orientation and disorientation as a pilot is something that you just worry about all the time. And so I'm thinking from a visually sighted person's perspective that when you go to space, that must be so hard for someone who's visually impaired, until he stopped me and said, there is no horizon for that, right? Like they can't see. So it actually it doesn't matter if you're up, down. Their vestibular system kind of corrects for what's happening in that environment, even though they visually don't have those cues. So I think you're going to see many types of people in space, whether it's people with disabilities, people with Parkinson's. Who knows what the future holds for even the benefits of being in that environment where you are free of gravity effects.
Well, I'd like to keep my name on the list, Jana, on your end, and
Absolutely.
Larry as well as a strong backup, because we're pretty passionate about the subject.
Yep.
And, you know,
Well, and
Parkinson's is so complex. The more you learn about it, the more complex it becomes. There's at least 50 or more human bodily functions that get pummeled by Parkinson's, and it's relentless. I mean, it's just relentless. So your health, your quality of life, as time goes on, just gets a little worse, a little worse. So some of these advancements are going to be absolute miracles to be able to come in and find solutions and helps for these individuals. I caught an airplane, a flight last Thursday, coming home from New York City. And I like New York City. It's a fun, vibrant city. And I was with two of my family members, so there's three of us. We were getting ready to board the plane. We went up to the gate assistant to make sure that we had our seats all set. We had 3 sets that we booked and paid for together, and it ended up going to 3 individual seats throughout the whole plane. So we didn't get to sit. We weren't going to get to sit together. So I thought this is a shame, you know. But this is stuff probably the airline industry goes on every single day, where they have to make changes and tweak things and all that. It's just got to be horrendous. So Howard has actually invited Larry and I to participate on the board. I don't think Howard would mind me mentioning this, but it's a board with the focus of working with clinics and other MDs to find better solutions to improve the quality of life for individuals that have to have Parkinson's or have it whatever else. So our focus will be strictly Parkinson's. And I'm so excited about that, to work with Larry and to, you know, take these isolated situations and try and find mainstream solutions for them. And I think the airline industry would be the first place to start. But right behind that is Parkinson's. I mean, I'm so passionate about improving life for individuals that have this disease, because it's not always easy. So anyway.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Larry Linton, tell us about your new company again, and how are you generating business from that?
I started this because, as I said, I was mid-career when I was diagnosed, and went into a tailspin, depression, about 2 years after my diagnosis, and only when I started accepting the card that I was dealt did I start living with Parkinson's. And over the years, I've changed my perspective on living with Parkinson's. When I was first diagnosed, I was determined to outtrain Parkinson's, outrun Parkinson's, to climb up that mountain of adversity and you know, claim that flag and shout to the world, I've conquered Parkinson's. But in actual fact, I've looked at it the wrong way. We all start at the top of the mountain, and Parkinson's is a gradual step down disease. You know, we step down symptoms, as Mark alludes to. We develop symptoms, in my case, anxiety, depression, and you manage to plateau and live well within that step down. Then there's another step down, and it's a sort of, that's a continuous down.
Oh, Larry.
But
yeah.
The trick is to live well in those plateau periods. And that's what I'm trying to instill and teach and guide people on. Firstly, don't wait for the diagnosis. Live your life authentically with humility and grace every day. But in those plateau periods, enjoy yourself, have fun, and learn, because invariably there is going to be another step down.
So that's a really positive approach, and I applaud that. And I just relish learning more about how you are going about this as a business. In other words, finding customers.
Yeah, so the way I'm looking at it is, my niche market is, professionals with Parkinson's who have just been diagnosed, and they are facing the dilemma of disclosure in the workplace. Do I disclose? Should I disclose? Must I disclose? What the impact is on career? Because, the legislation is there to protect people with disabilities, but in practice, there is a difference, and the impact does make a difference. So basically what I'm offering is my 10 years or 12 years of experience, so that people can make decisions, informed decisions, better decisions about some of these issues that impact your life as Parkinson's, as you're living with Parkinson's. And, my rage is against the insurance companies, because they are there to deny. How can you be totally disabled if you are at the gym, running on a treadmill, riding a bike, completing half marathons like I've done? We have a chronic, progressive, incurable illness. That's the definition of Parkinson's. So it's an opportunity to educate, to assist, and to spread the word about what life is like with Parkinson's.
So this advisory board, Larry and Mark, that's the idea, is to inform.
Yep.
Very much so.
Yep. Next week, I'm getting on a bike to ride 500 kilometers in 5 days through the communities in Canada, bringing awareness about Parkinson's, because a lot of people, live behind closed doors. But in fact, we've got to be out there shining a light on Parkinson's, getting people out and to exercise and to move and to live positively as long as they can.
Let me ask you, have you contacted the local TV station managers along your route because they'll send a camera crew?
Yes, I mean, there is. We've got 2 teams riding east and west, meeting up in Collingwood, Ontario, and then riding into Ottawa. And throughout it, it's a grassroots relay with local community support. And as we get nearer to the bigger centers, there is interest is building, and I'm looking forward to joining the team in a week's time.
Dr. Ken Lloyd, tell us your take on what you've heard so far.
I'm dazzled. I am in awe. I have so much respect for all of you. I mean, I listened to Larry and Mark's comments about helping those who are dealing with Parkinson's. And Larry, your philosophy, your actions are truly going to help people dealing with this going forward. And I listened to Jana, and taking a whole new step in medical care. It's taking everything that we've taken as givens, and they're all gone. No more givens. The impact of gravity, which we all have lived with, everything starts anew. It's like hitting a giant restart button, and literally, as well as figuratively, in another world. And obviously the overlap is, as medical research continues in space, it wouldn't surprise me to see help for all these chronic diseases, because our thinking and actions have been earthbound. And yet here now, we're going to be able to look at it in such a different way. What all of you are doing is absolutely so laudable and so remarkable. I'm just totally struck by it. And just as a side note, I like the idea of Prada making spacesuits. I mean, I know nothing really about fashion other than a movie from long ago called The Devil Wears Prada. And now the new movie is The Astronaut Wears Prada. I think it's great. For what you're doing, I really just say thank you on behalf of everyone. It's wonderful.
So Jana, the artwork that you sent along some time ago that I've published on the website, which you'll all see when I send it to you, there's a picture of that glove with the Prada logo on it. And there's some description or something describing why the glove is special, not because of the logo, but the usefulness of it.
Well, and so the next generation spacesuits are meant to be more mobile, I guess is a good word, because they're extra vehicular mobility units. But old spacesuits, you know, when you see the pictures of everyone bouncing around on the moon, they just didn't have any flexibility in the knee joints or the elbow joints, and the gloves were huge. I mean, so to have something that's more bare skin like, that you can actually manipulate tools. And in fact, we're making all different tools for the suit just because the glove is so different, right? And, you know, Ken, when you said thank you to everyone, I thank all the time people that are visionaries like Dr. Paula Grisante from the National Stem Cell Foundation. She's the force behind the Parkinson's and MS research that we do on station. And I think for her, she looked at the foundation and the work that they could do on the ground and really wanted to take a different approach, because we have had some hurdles in the research that's been done here on Earth, right? We're still not at a place where we have therapies or we understand this disease well enough to think about maybe someday a cure, Larry, right? Instead of it's a progressive, chronic, and nothing you can do about it. And when we first started having conversations about doing research on station, she had two teams, one on the West Coast and one on the East Coast. So the New York Stem Cell Foundation and Dr. Jean Loring, who is previously with Scripps and also started Aspen, which is now in clinical trials with a Parkinson's therapy that they're working on, which is fantastic to see. But we came together as teams and we talked about what are the common mechanisms in neurodegenerative diseases. And it was the neuroinflammation piece. And so that's what we decided to focus on, because as we build models to study neurodegenerative disease in space, we want to be able to understand where are those commonalities and where are opportunities for us to do drug challenge in an environment where we see those organoids mature in a way that they wouldn't necessarily here on the ground. So from a hope perspective, you know, I hope that patients everywhere understand that work that's being done, even in space, to take a new approach. Taking gravity out of science is not something you can do here on Earth, but it could be a step toward a breakthrough in terms of understanding and providing new therapies to patients.
So the funding, I read in some of that earlier PR that the Rockefeller Foundation, I think in New York, is an investor.
So they're not involved in the work with the National Stem Cell Foundation, but I know that they're doing quite a bit. And there's also the Michael J. Fox Foundation. They've flown LARC 2. They've looked at, you know, protein crystallization of that protein. We've talked about including cell lines that have that genetic mutation, right? Because there are some causal mutations in some diseases that we can look at. Others, it's a little bit less clear, like MS, that there is a gene associated with that. But as we start to understand where are those pieces in microgravity that we can look at that maybe give us a different view and a different perspective, that's how I think we're going to come to opportunities to think about new ways to treat and even diagnose diseases like Parkinson's.
Mark?
Jana, if you'll mail me one of those spacesuits, I'll wear it and walk all around my neighborhood touting what a wonderful tool it is and how it's going to save me all the way. And I'll write you a review on how effective I think it is. I'll do all that for free. You just got to mail me the suit.
Deal. It's a deal. Well, and I'm thinking maybe we send one to Larry too, because then he can wear it on his bike. Because you can actually ride a bike, run on a treadmill, bend down, pick things up. So he could show the versatility of the suit.
I'd like to know, are the sizes different in space? Because I'm noticing as I'm aging, it's sort of medium here, but large down here. I'd like it reversed.
So, and it's interesting because, you know, the next generation spacesuits, like the suits that are up there right now, they're not very size friendly. They're sort of a small, medium, and large. And the way that our suit is being constructed, it's actually kind of a custom fit, but it allows you to tailor fit right in the suit. So you don't have to build a whole new suit, but we have multiple places where you can adjust length and size. And so it's extremely flexible in that regard as well. And I always love to tell this story because, you know, when people think about working in the space industry, they always think you have to be an engineer, you know, rocket scientists, right? Which that's what our teams really are the rocket scientists. But propulsion, robotics, those are the things that you think about when you think about space. For something like a spacesuit, the people that work at Axiom that actually are making the spacesuits and sewing them have all come from either theater, Cirque du Soleil, like an industry that you would never expect would touch space. But
Well,
that's
Cirque du Soleil, they're all gymnasts.
well, and the costumes need to move, right? So that kind of intricate sewing and it's precision sewing. First time I walked into our suits facility and I saw the sewing area, you know, you hear a sewing machine and you think that you hear the
Come over
clip
here.
of the needle coming up and down.
Take
It
a
was
look.
like it was a one at a time because it's like 1/63rd, I think, of an inch per stitch. And it's precision sewing through these multiple layers of fabric that are being configured to have that kind of flexibility in joints. So, but I don't think anyone that was in theater making costumes or Cirque du Soleil would have ever thought that their job would have led them to space. And the truth is that there's so many careers in space, not just science or space suits, but we need everyone. We need the attorneys to help us to build these new commercial markets, right? We need people that know how to put food together that's nutritious and healthy, but also taste great when you're in space because, you know, you don't taste very well because your fluid shifts to your head. So you name it, any industry that is on the ground. And when I think of the biomanufacturing industry, I want everyone who knows how to do GMP manufacturing to come and work for the space industry now. So it's a different world. Just like when after the space station was built, when it was being built, it was mostly astronauts who were pilots and engineers. Now our crew, even the NASA crew, they're scientists because they're using that laboratory that they've built. And in the future, you're going to see people going to space that have traditional careers on the ground that you would have never expected intersected with space. But it is truly, when you think about expanding the definition of global, we need to take everything that's here with us as we build those new industries in space.
Fantastic.
And I want to put one more plug in if I can. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but let me turn this around. I did a TEDx talk a little over a year now, and it was fun doing one. I did it down in an auditorium in St. George, and there was 450 strangers out in the audience, and I got to get up in front of them and give a 12-minute talk about what it's like living with Parkinson's. And the theme of the whole talk was adaptability proliferates possibilities. And so you meet these head-on challenges that are big challenges, and it depends on the way you adapt to it and the way you get through it makes every difference there is in the world. So you just got to really, you know, go through it. And I came up with 5 adaptive principles. One is the only constant is change, embrace it, because we're going to have changes no matter whether we like it or not. Second, if you think things can't get worse, you're wrong. And that's not to be too humorous, but it's just things can get worse. The third one is control's an illusion. And it is an illusion. We can't control really hardly anything if you stop, sit down and think about it. And then the fourth one is life isn't always fair. And you know, just maintain, whatever you do, maintain your sense of humor. Because when you get into these situations, like Larry mentioned, it's real easy to slip into depression, to battle with that and other challenges. The thing I love about Larry is he's had it for 12 years. Is that right, Larry?
That's right.
That you said? 12 years with Parkinson's. I've had mine for 18 years. And it's amazing how different we are. He's always so calm and collected. I admire that. And I'm so envious of that in him. But, you know, we both have challenges we have to face and go through. Mm-hmm. And then my last credo, my last adaptive principle is there are no coincidences in life, just miracles. See the miracle. And we will all have challenges that we will see miracles and see higher divine hand in our lives to help us get through them. I really believe that. But those are 5 adaptive principles that if you can just, once you get that horrible, horrific diagnosis, which it's an ugly day in your life because you don't want to believe it. And there's a river in Egypt called denial. And that's where a lot of times you go sliding into when you hear this. So I had 3 different diagnoses because I didn't believe any one of them. But now I've made peace with it to a certain extent. But anyway, so if you want to watch my talk, here's my plug.
No.
Type into your Google search engine, the easiest way I can tell it to you. Type in Mark, M-A-R-K, Colo, C-O-L-O, second word, talk. And you put that in there, hit enter, it'll pull my talk up and you'll know all those principles. And hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Well, I thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I got 4 jokes in there. One of my, I just had to tell you, I stole it from Larry. This was his joke. I'm thankful I never have to purchase an electric toothbrush.
Yeah.
I love that joke. Anyway, there's 3 more in there you can watch, and I hope you enjoy it. I've had 8,000 views to date in the last year. It never quite went viral, but I think it's helped a lot of people. That makes
And I can say I am one of those 8,000 viewers, and it was a phenomenal thing to watch. And I admire you and Larry so much for doing what you're doing, because I think it's so important to be talking about what the reality is and coping mechanisms, right? Ways to try until we're at a place where we have a better handle on diagnosing and treating this disease. I think the most important thing is to stay committed, connected as a community, and sharing that information so that there isn't that sense of being alone, right? I mean, I can't imagine people that don't come to you and want to hear what you have to say, because it's so important. And I hope that message I hope you get double the number of views after this program, because I think it's important for people to see.
Jana, let me ask you for advice, if not now, then later by email. How or where would you like to see me distribute this finished program?
Yeah, I mean, as broad of an audience viewership as you can get, because I think the importance of hearing directly from people living with Parkinson's and opportunities for science to advance and help us, even if it's in a non-traditional way that you're not always thinking about space helping you to move that forward. You know, sometimes I feel we hear a lot about people going to space, and you can hear the comments of, why are people spending money on going to space when we need to be doing things here on the planet to help people that are living here with diseases like this? And I really hope the message gets through that the work that we're doing in space is to improve life on Earth and to try to address some of these challenges that we have in understanding really complex disorders like Parkinson's disease that we haven't really been able to advance or accelerate new treatments for. It's just now that we're starting to see some of the cell therapies, the dopamine replacement therapies go into clinical trials. We need to have multiple therapies moving forward, not just a few. And this is a very hard area, because anything that is in the CNS area has a high failure rate when it gets to the clinic. So if we can take different approaches to even understand how to get to those clinical trials and get through them successfully, that's when we're really going to have opportunities to help everyone who is living with this disease.
Okay, what is CNS?
Central nervous system. Sorry.
Got it. No,
Sorry.
that's all right. I'm just
And it wasn't even a
speaking for my
space
audience.
acronym. It wasn't even a space acronym.
Yeah,
I've
that's
been
great.
trying to be very good about making sure I don't use space acronyms, because it's so easy for me to do it and it's like alphabet soup. So, but stop me if I do. But central nervous system. I mean, the whole neuro space within pharma, it's just a really hard area. A lot of it is because we haven't had good models. And now to even have human models, I mean, what National Stem Cell Foundation flies to the International Space Station are patient-derived Parkinson's and MS organoids. So we want to look across diverse populations, right? Because there's a lot to be still defined about what this disease even looks like in different ethnicities and different parts of the population. And, who knows, with AI, we may even be able to start pulling in ways to look at that data that help to show common markers or common pathways in things that don't appear to be necessarily the same on the surface. So I think it's going to be powerful. And I think that if your programs are so important for people to hear what's happening, that mainstream anywhere you can put this, I think would be fantastic.
And I promise that I will. And you know what else? We'll talk about it offline. Is I've been itching to produce a live in-person meeting in San Diego. And Jana, if your schedule allows, whenever that may be, probably in the new year, maybe not so late, I'd like to invite you to be a keynoter, and we could show
Thank
this
you.
show or show other things
Yep.
from the space station.
That would be fantastic. Well, and our Axiom 4 private astronaut mission is scheduled for spring of 2025. So maybe something around that time frame too, we could even talk about what's happening on that mission. I think National Stem Cell Foundation may fly again on that mission, but they have 3 more missions after that they're going to be doing, which will be 30-day missions to the International Space Station. And they're expanding the model so that they can also look at diseases like Alzheimer's. So it's going to be a really exciting time to see the continued work that team is doing. It's a fantastic team. And as I say, Dr. Paula Grisanti, she's just such a visionary, and to really be supportive of this kind of work and to build the teams that she's done. They are true rocket scientists, and they certainly have a lot of space experience, and publications will be coming out very soon from those teams. So I'm happy to share those as well.
Thank you very much, people, for being on this show, this special show to life. And please come back again.
Thanks. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for participating.
Thanks.
Bye.
Great to see everyone.
Yes.
Okay.
Stay well.
Bye-bye now. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Okay, we're done.